Have you ever watched a show and you fall in love with a certain character, which makes you fall in love deeper with the actor themselves? Sometimes when something happens to the actor, the producers end up either killing the character or changing the actor, so swapping the actor and putting a different person, and they come under the same character. I don't like that. What do you think is gonna happen? That my mind is just gonna think that, okay, this different face is still the same person? Like, no, you can't do that. For me, I actually appreciate the ones who just killed the character more than the ones who try to play with my mind and act as if I'm not gonna notice that this is a totally different person, but they're still just the same character. Welcome to Murder on the Motherland, the podcast where I take you on a trip to Africa and let you in on some of the African true crime stories. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to this podcast, hi, thank you for coming. In today's case, something happened to the actor in one of, I'm not going to call it my favorite shows, but in one of the shows that I watched and I really enjoyed. There's this show called How to Ruin Christmas. How to Ruin Christmas is a South African show, and it's more of like a light-hearted comedy type of show. Last year during Christmas time, my husband was looking for some Christmas movies to watch, and he found How to Ruin Christmas. It was about this girl called Tumiselo, and she was more of like a prodigal daughter. She ruined things. Basically, when she was around, things would go wrong. She was seen as the rebellious daughter. She was just living her own life. She was unapologetic. So I watched How to Ruin Christmas season 1 and season 2. And in season 3 now, I was looking forward to watching season 3 at the end of the first episode. I noticed it at the beginning of the episode because in the other seasons and the other episodes, you would see Tumi in there as one of the very first people that would show when the episode is starting. In this case, in season 3, I didn't see her. So the very first episode actually ended up finishing and I didn't see Tumi anywhere. So at the end of the first episode of season 3, guess what was there? There was In Loving Memory of Busisiwe Lurayi. Like always, I'm always interested no matter what show I watched, even if I don't know who the person is, I just want to see them. So if I'm watching a show and they show me In Loving Memory, even though the character wasn't as significant, chances are I'm going to look it up. So I get my phone and I'm like, let me just Google and see who Busisiwe Lurayi is. Let me tell you, I was so upset. I was so upset to the extent that even finishing the whole show, like, I didn't see any reason why I needed to still do that because Tumiselo was the whole show, basically. I know you guys have your own opinions on that one, which is fine, but in my own opinion, Tumiselo was the show. She was the main actress. She was the show. She was basically the one who was making it happen. Like, at least it was funnier with her in there. So when I didn't see her and then I found out she passed away, honestly, I didn't want to finish the show, and if it wasn't for my husband, I probably wouldn't have finished the show. Even though I watched the show, I'll tell you that the very first 2 seasons are actually what was most interesting to me, and after she was not in the show was just not the same anymore. And yeah, if they make another season, I'm probably not gonna watch. That's the honest truth. Today's case, it takes us back to South Africa. I know our very first episode was in South Africa. Yes, we are back in the lovely, beautiful South Africa. And fun fact I learned about South Africa actually is that about 20% of all the gold that is mined in the world is actually mined in South Africa. Yeah, that's just a nugget for you to know. I don't know, do what you will with that information. Anyway, our case today takes us to the city of Tembisa Ekurhuleni. Tembisa is a large township. You know, townships are the cities that are not fully developed. Most of the cities were developed during colonization era, and what sets apart the big cities from townships is that most of these cities are not updated and they are not taken care of. In townships, chances are the infrastructure is just let to die, basically. Like, nobody is really taking the time and putting resources into making sure that the roads and the infrastructures in these towns are actually up to par. Busisiwe Lurayi was born in 1986 on May 26. She was born to her father, Freddie Mokwena, and her mom, Sandra Lurayi. Her parents divorced when she was really a little girl. Before she was even the age of 4, they had already separated. So she didn't grow up in a two-parent household. Maybe her very early years, yes, she did, but I don't think she even remembered what it was like, because they ended up separating when she was really, really young. When she was around the age of 5, her father came to her mom, who was also staying with her mom. Both of them were still staying in Gauteng. So Freddie Mokwena, who was the dad, ended up going to Sandra and told her like, hey, I would like to take care of Busi if that is okay with you. This is alleged. I'm assuming that he was the one who was doing better financially, and he felt that he was, more equipped, and he would have been able to take care of Busisiwe much better than the mother would have. And looking at the fact that she agreed without any hesitation, I believe that she also knew that the dad was the better providing main parent for Busisiwe at that age. Busisiwe ended up going to kindergarten and primary school in Durban, South Africa, where she was staying with the dad. Busisiwe is known to have loved languages. Languages were like a second passion for her. Her first love was acting. Busisiwe loved acting. Her dad says that she loved acting ever since she was young, and she also had the same passion for languages as well. There was a time when he was going from country to country, he would always take her with her, such that when they would get to those places, she would just be able to just have a small conversation with people in their own language. She ended up going to Wits University after she graduated high school, and at Wits University she wanted to study architectural science. So architectural science is the art and science of designing buildings and structures. After having gone to Wits University for 3 weeks, she couldn't take it. She knew that this architectural building stuff was not for her. She knew exactly what she wanted to do, and she had the balls to come to terms with the fact that, hey, I'm in the wrong field and I'm not happy doing this, and I need to change. I need to go for what I really want. So just after 3 weeks of studying at Wits University, she then decided that she wanted to quit, and she was going to go to South Africa School of Motion Picture. While she was still at Wits University, she then calls her dad. She's like, hey dad, I know I had said that this is what I want to study. I know I wanted to do this architectural science, and I'm here. And I know it's still too early for me to say this is not what I want to do, but I know deep down in my heart that this is not what I want to do. And I do not want to be here, and I'm not going to be here. In an interview, she was saying that she had to really be firm with the dad, because she knew that she had to convince him and tell him that, hey, this is not what I want to do. Because at the same time, she didn't want to disappoint him. So she knew that leaving the school would disappoint him, but it kind of gave her the zeal to want to work even harder. So in 2002, she ends up going to Cape Town, and she goes to the school, does all the paperwork that is needed, and then she started school. So after she started school, she decided to major in pictures and performance. She also loved to dance. Because of her love to dance, she ended up joining the school production called the Pata Pata traditional dance. So at this point, she ends up getting her first break. So just after a few months being at school, she ends up hearing that there's a local producer who was looking for a lead role in one of his shows called Sarafina. Sarafina is a film about South African teenagers who were fighting against segregation and discrimination on the grounds of race, or known as racism today. So she goes to the Market Theatre. When she gets there, and then she sees this huge line that is going down blocks and blocks and blocks, she decides that she was just gonna join. She stands in the line, 6 hours goes by, 12 hours go by. But then the thing is, if you leave the line, she knew that if she was to leave the line, then someone else was going to take her spot, and you don't even know how fast the line is going to go until it gets to you. Busisiwe ends up standing in line for 2 whole days before she even auditions, before she even sees the producers, before she even talks to nobody. That's passion and drive right there, because how many of us are willing to stand in line for 2 days for something that we want? I don't know. After she auditions, she ends up going back to school. While she was at school, she gets a phone call from the producer. Hey, Busisiwe, yes, we auditioned with you yesterday. I'd like to tell you that you got the place and you got the role of Sarafina. Oh my God. After she gets the role of Sarafina, she's still in school, but at the same time, she still needs to now start practicing for this gig that she just got. So she calls her dad again. She's like, hey dad, I just got this role, and if I decide to stay at school and continue with my studies right now, it's gonna interfere with this gig that I got. And mind you, she's in school to learn about acting and she already got an acting gig, so it doesn't really make sense to say, okay, no, I'm not gonna accept the gig because I'm still in school. So she had to. She ends up telling the dad that, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a break for a little bit, focus on this gig, and once the gig is done, I'll come back to school and continue with my studies until I'm done. So the dad agrees and she takes a break and she starts working on Sarafina. Sarafina ends up opening doors for her. It was like her very first break. After working on Sarafina, she ends up going to audition for another show called Shreds and Dreams. Shreds and Dreams was a play about 3 women who were battling with both the demands of being modern women in the new society and also trying to be traditional women. I'm guessing this is a time when feminism had just started and feminism was like asking women to go out into the working fields and be part of the working society. After having starred in Shreds and Dreams, 2 of her college friends ended up reaching out to her and offered her a business deal. These 2 friends of hers were telling her that they had a film that they were writing, more of like a comedy, and this comedy they wanted her to be the star. When she accepted this comedy and this role, that's when one of her biggest characters were born. The name of the show that the 2 friends were offering was called City Sesla. After 2 of her friends had reached out and she had already started working with the character Pumzile in City Sesla, another opportunity rose for her to be a guest on the show ER. It was season 12, episode 9, from the years 2007 to 2014. Busisiwe ended up doing a lot of different shows and gigs, and she was on different networks. She was even on BBC. Later in 2010, she decided to come back to City Sesla to her character Pumzile. During this time, she had also gotten some awards. She got the SAFTA Awards for Best Supporting Actress for the role of Pumzile. After having gone back to City Sesla and took back her character, she also joined the cast of Sokulu and Partners. She was playing Winnie Molepo. Later in 2011, she ended up joining Generations and she was acting as Swazi Lukele, a socialite wife on the brink of a divorce. Around 2014, Busisiwe didn't really do a lot of shows. However, I ended up seeing some pictures of her around this time when she was pregnant, and I'm thinking the reason she wasn't doing a lot of acting was because she ended up being pregnant. However, I couldn't get any information about who the partner was or who the father of the child was. At this time, when she was pregnant, she ended up just taking time off and she was just concentrating on her pregnancy. After the child was born, she also took some more time off and she was just concentrating on her baby. On all of her pages, you can see that she was really obsessed with the child. The love that she shared with her daughter was just so amazing. You could see that she would always be speaking good about her daughter, motivating her, encouraging her, complimenting her, supporting her. She seemed like she was the biggest supporter. She was just there for her child. Another thing to note is that Busisiwe and her daughter, remember how I mentioned that Busisiwe had a love for languages? Yeah, her daughter had the same thing, and I'm thinking, like, how could you not? Just at the age of 8, by the time her mom passed away, she already could speak French, Mandarin, Zulu, English. Around this time, between 2014 and 2020, there wasn't really any new shows that came from her. However, when 2020 came around, that's when How to Ruin Christmas came along. The very first season 1, aired on Netflix in December, and then season 2 ended up airing on Netflix the following year in December 2021. This was the last season that she was on the show for. She also got an award for Best Actress for this show, which was How to Ruin Christmas. 2022 in July. This was the worst time for a lot of people in her family, her fans. Her death shocked everybody. 2022, July 10th. This day, it is said that Busisiwe woke up and she went to work. I do not know exactly what kind of work that she went to do. If it was on a set, I do not know. However, some sources say that on this day she woke up and she went to work, and when she got to work she wasn't really feeling well, and she decided that she was going to leave work and go back home. When she went back home, nobody really knows what happened. Early that day, her mom's sister ends up calling her phone. It is said that these two had a relationship that was so strong they would always talk for hours on the phone almost every day. According to her, she says that Busisiwe was that type of person where if you just call her phone, she will always pick up. She liked to converse. She liked to talk to people. She liked to connect. So anytime you call her phone, if she's not available, she'll tell you that I'm not available, and she'll then make time to call you a little later. However, on this day, she calls her phone, the phone is going to voicemail, and she was thinking to herself like, that's weird, because of how she's always on the run and how she's always far away from other people. One thing that should always do is make sure her phone is on, because she knows that her family would be trying to reach out to her. So phone being off that day was kind of like a red flag to her. She was like, something is fishy. So after she feels that thing in her gut, she ends up going to call Busisiwe's dad. So she's like, hey, have you spoke with Busi, because I've been trying to get a hold of her and her phone has just been going to voicemail. And then the dad is like, oh no, not really, I spoke with her earlier, but not right now. So then she asks like, do you know where Ayana is? Ayana is Busisiwe's child. So she's like, do you know where Ayana is? Because Ayana is usually always with her mom, and I'm pretty sure at the age of 8 Ayana had a phone. So at this point, maybe she had also tried to call Ayana and her phone wasn't going through. I don't know. Do you know where Ayana is? And then Fred is like, oh, I know where Ayana is actually. I do have her here. So when she finds out that Ayana is okay, she ends up just thinking that, you know what, maybe Busi is doing something else. She would definitely call me back. She didn't think much of it, and at that point she wasn't going to keep pressing the issue to really find out where she was. Again, Busisiwe was an adult, so it's like, hey, maybe she's doing something. She'll give me a call when she's free, right? Other hand, Busisiwe's dad now, after he gets the call from his aunt, right, he's like, okay, after work, he's thinking to himself, maybe after work I'll just pass by. After work comes along and he's like, let me just pass by Busi's house and see if she's there and see if everything is okay. Busisiwe had given him a spare key, so when he gets to Busi's house, the gate is locked, thing is locked. He ends up jumping over a 6-foot door hole, and he jumps inside, and then he walks to the front door. As he's walking to the front door, he's just obviously not thinking. I can just imagine, like, in his mind, obviously he's not thinking the worst. He's walking to the front door, and then when he gets to the front door, he tries to open the door, but then it doesn't open. So he has his own key, so he unlocks the door, opens, and then he gets in. I'm pretty sure he's calling out Busi, because how do you just get into people's house and be quiet? You don't do that, do you? You just get in there and let the people know that you're there. So I'm assuming he gets in there and then he starts calling out Busisiwe, Busi. As he's calling her, he's not getting any response. So he starts going into the rooms. I don't know, maybe this is like a father instincts or whatever, but he decides to start getting into rooms and rooms and rooms. Another thing I was thinking about is, why would he get there and start calling? Is it maybe because he saw her car parked outside? Because if you don't see a car parked outside and then you get into the house and you don't hear anything, chances are people are not home. But this was just me thinking, maybe he saw her car parked outside. That's why when he got inside the house, he was calling out. And then that's why also he was going into rooms looking for her. By the time he gets into one of these bedrooms, he sees her on the floor. She's laying there on the floor. Her legs are bruised. Her knees are bruised, which makes me think that those are like defensive wounds, because how does she have bruising? Like, where's the bruising coming from? So she's laying on the ground faced up, and there's also blood dripping from the side of her mouth going downward. So as he gets into the house, obviously he runs to her, trying to see if she's gonna be okay, trying to see if she's moving. Nothing. He gets to her. Pretty sure at that point she was already called. He ends up calling the police. At that same time, he also ends up calling his family to let them know what had happened. By the time the cops end up getting to their house, her family had already gathered. People had already traveled the distance to come there. The police later publicized a statement saying that an officer on duty, Sergeant Lamini from Edenville, he was patrolling on the 10th of July in the area and he received a complaint at 2 Baker Road, which is where Busi was staying at that time. And on arrival, he found that the family members were already with the body. Busi's dad is the one who led them to the bedroom where her body was laying lifeless, clothed. At that point, the police didn't have any more evidence. They just said they didn't know who he was and they're just waiting on the autopsy to come in. From all the information I was looking for online, I ended up seeing that there was no autopsy or toxicology that was published. The family also was just saying that they don't know who did it and they don't know what happened, and they were just waiting to see what the police would say about the case. From the visible bruises that she had on her body, you can really tell that foul play occurred. You can tell that something is fishy, something is not right, because where are the bruises coming from? And her bleeding from the mouth, the blood is coming down her mouth. It means that she's bleeding from inside. Where is the blood coming from? It means something happened. We just don't know what happened. And at that point also the family didn't know what happened, and the cops are also saying they don't know what happened. And yeah, guys, up until today we do not know what happened to Busi. We do not know who did it. This happened July 2022 and we're already in 2023. There was no other news that was published about this case. The family only came out saying that they're just still waiting on the police to do their job and find who did it. We need answers because evidently you can see that there was foul play. So yeah, so you've reached the end of this audio. Thank you so much for listening. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts, please leave me a review. I would really like to hear from you guys. And one more thing, if you have any murder stories you would like for me to cover, please don't forget to email me, or please email me at murderonthemotherland@gmail.com. We also have Instagram account where I'll be posting you some of the pictures of the cases that I would be talking about that week. So please go ahead and follow me there and we can do a little bit of chatting over there. Stay safe.